Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really exciting, I don't know if that's the right word, but we have a really thoughtful and timely conversation on the importance of building state power with everything that's happening around reproductive justice. Reproductive justice and access. But I am now going to pass it over to co-host of Pod Save America and co-founder of Crooked Media, John Favreau.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. I'll be really quick. There's a completely understandable urge when something this horrible happens in politics to just scream into the void or yell on Twitter or throw up your hands and give up. And I just wanted to thank all of you for choosing a different path. Since this draft opinion leaked, the Vote Save America community has raised over $313,000 to immediately help fund patients in abortion clinics. You've raised almost $40,000 to help elect a pro-choice Democratic Senate majority in November that will eliminate the filibuster and codify Roe v. Wade into law. And more than 3,300 people in counting have signed up for Midterm Madness. So we have an army of volunteers to help elect a pro-choice majority this fall. I think it's important to understand this fight is not over. No, we can't do anything about the Supreme Court's decision. No, we can't do anything about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema right now. But there are states representing millions and millions of people where the difference between electing Democrats and Republicans this fall will be the difference between whether reproductive rights are enshrined into law or whether Republicans will criminalize all abortions, including medical procedures that save lives, and potentially criminalize birth control and contraception as well. So what we do between now and November matters. Where we direct our energy matters. And most of all, who we elect matters. And we are all incredibly grateful that you're all ready and willing to take on this fight. So thank you again. And with that, I will turn it back over to Shaniqua.
Sorry about that. Let me turn off my Slack notifications. But yeah, thank you, John. And as John said, you all who are joining us here today, whether you're being here for this conversation or also donated to the fundraising that we're running right now to help immediate access to abortion and other reproductive services. Thank you so much. Like literally all the work we do here at Vote Save America would not be possible without you. So thank you. But we are on short time today. So I want to be respectful of you all's time and get our panel started. So if our panelists can join the stage Zoom. Yes, I will get started. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think I started working in politics in 2010, and that was when we lost a lot of state legislatures. And I think since then, I've always wondered, what more can we be doing? And we've tried to do a better job of including that work in our work here at Vote Save America. But now, especially with the draft decision that came out or was leaked last week, I think it's a really timely conversation for us to talk about the importance of building state power. So very quickly going to introduce everyone, and then we're going to get started with a conversation. And first, I will introduce the director of, Black Leadership and Engagement at Planned Parenthood Federation Action. Of America. I'm really sorry about that. Let me repeat that. Planned Parenthood Federation of America. And then we have Representative Mari Manoogian, and she is Michigan State Representative for the 40th House District, and Jarvis Houston, who's the organizing and political director at Sister District Project. And with that, we're just going to jump right into the questions. Sorry, I have a few documents up here. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Representative Manoogian, so you serve in the Michigan legislature. I'm really sorry, y'all. I'm all over the place today. I have an initial question that I want to ask everyone, and then I'm going to jump into individual questions for everyone. So the first question is actually for everyone, but we can also still start with you, Representative. Could everyone just very quickly, and Jarvis can go next, just share a sentence or two as to why people who have maybe come into the conversation to hear about reproductive access should also care about voting rights and access to the ballot this November, but obviously in all elections.
Yeah, so for me, it seems like these two things really go hand in hand. In order to make sure that we have access to our reproductive freedom, we also need to make sure that we have the ability to know that our elections are done freely and fairly, and that all votes are counted. And all of those things are really, really important to make sure that our government is indeed a representative democracy. So to make sure that, you know, folks have confidence in in my state, we elect a lot of judges, in fact. So when it comes to upholding our laws and upholding, you know, the rule of law in our state, and making sure that everyone has access to all of the freedoms that are outlined in the Constitution, especially in the Michigan Constitution here in Michigan, both of those things really do go hand in hand for me.
Jarvis?
Yeah, I agree. Both go hand in hand. They fall under the umbrella of civil rights that we have been fighting for years and years and years. Republicans have saw the importance of state legislative race, the importance of state leg races since the Civil War. That's very important to know. Only last year, the Republicans introduced 400 anti-voter bills in 48 states, trying to restrict voter access for people all across the country. And what Trump did, not only did he appoint 3 Supreme Court justices, he appointed 200 federal judges. So not only do we need to protect elect state legislators and get majorities in states such as Michigan and Pennsylvania, we need our state members, our senators, our representatives all across the country to protect us from our voting rights and our abortion rights, because they all fall under the same umbrella, telling us what we can't do and telling us stuff that we have fought for years, that now you have to take a step back. Now we have to take 5 steps forward.
Thank you. Nourbese?
Just picking up off of what the other two panelists said, if you would take this circle of Venn diagram and show where voting rights are and people restricting voting rights, and you put the abortion and who are restricting abortion, they almost overlap completely. The same folks who are taking and thinking about removing restrictions to voting are the same folks who are stealing our rights and hijacking our rights for abortion access. And so if we're thinking about what does it mean to freedom, reproductive freedom in the biggest sense, right? It is looking at both being able to control what happens to and in your body, as well as in your community, right? And we know that voting and the people who are there to elect, who are there to represent us, right, are the people who can make it possible and remove obstacles or put the obstacles back in, right, and make it harder, which what we're seeing today. So those two things are, I would say, you can't think of them without together. They're inexplicably linked in a way that can never be really parsed apart.
Thank you. Thank you all. And now we're going to go to questions for each of you. So Representative Manoogian, you serve in the Michigan legislature, where Republicans currently actually have majorities in both chambers, but Gretchen Whitmer, who is a Democrat, is governor. So could you talk a bit about the importance of the upcoming election as it relates to kind of the balance of power between the governorship and the state legislature, and how that impacts your ability to protect abortion access, including, could you speak a little bit about the ballot measure that you all have? I think you're still working on getting it on the ballot, but what that would do for access to abortion care.
Yeah, so I want to speak about several things that you mentioned, in addition to something that I mentioned in my earlier comments about elected judgeships. I think that's a really important element in Michigan that many other states might not have, or might not have something similar. So with regard to flipping the legislature, we are very, very close. In fact, last week, we won a special election in Michigan on the west side of the state. It was a Trump plus 16 district that our Democratic candidate flipped. So at the beginning of the week last week, we were down 4 seats, and now we're only down 3. And so we're very close to taking majority in the state legislature. And of course, the person who, beat the anti-choice Republican on the West side, she's running for re-election too. But, it was sort of, as the other panelists were saying, this sort of like inextricably linked between, reproductive freedom and, frankly, the fascist elements of the Republican Party that we're seeing. That candidate was incredibly extremist. And so in terms of making sure we flip the Michigan House and Michigan Senate, we're unfortunately seeing, Michigan sort of was the breeding ground for a lot of what we saw on 1/6. And so we're seeing a lot of those same elements continue to crop up in our state legislative races across the state. So it is incredibly important that we focus on the state legislature this cycle. Of course, we want to make sure we deliver a win for Gretchen Whitmer, so she's back at the governor's seat again, as well as our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who is really, really important in making sure that we're protecting reproductive freedom. She's already said she wouldn't prosecute any cases related to it should Roe end up falling or when Roe falls. But also with regard to elected judgeships in Michigan, we have an opportunity to shore up our progressive majority in the state Supreme Court. My dear friend, Representative Kyra Harris Bolden, who represents a neighboring district to me, is actually running for a state Supreme Court seat. She'd be the first Black woman to ever serve on the Michigan State Supreme Court. She's fervently in support of reproductive freedom. She's someone who is really important to make sure we can shore up our majority there as well. So there's a lot of opportunities at the ballot box for Michiganders this cycle to make sure that we're protecting reproductive freedom. And that also includes, as you mentioned, the ballot initiative, Reproductive Freedom for All. They're still collecting signatures. If you go to my Twitter page, you can sign up to help those volunteers or help direct people if you have friends or family or you're in Michigan yourself and you want to help collect signatures. It's really important. That's going to enshrine abortion access in our state constitution. So that way, it's part of our state constitution. And, as the Republicans have been saying, as the Supreme Court has been saying, they want it to be up to the states. And this is the opportunity for Michigan to make sure we codify it in our constitution.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing up the judicial elections. We actually, whenever we put out our sample ballot guide, that's the feedback we get the most. We need more information on the judges. So we will try to obviously continue to have as much of that information as we can. But, it's good for people to hear about these races before they open up their ballot and start wondering who's there. Jarvis, my next question is for you. So, you sister district focuses on state legislatures. And so state legislatures after the 2010 midterms, Democrats suffered extensively there. I'm from North Carolina. We're still feeling the effects of the 2010 midterms. But overall, it had a significant impact on our country. And so, since then, maybe this is just my opinion, you all feel free to jump in. It doesn't feel like Democrats have shifted and then decided, okay, we need to actually make huge investments in state legislatures. I think those conversations are obviously happening now, but over the course of 2010 until now hasn't been happening at the level that it should be. So with all of that said, what lessons do you think, this draft opinion and people just really understanding for the first time that something that they have seen be legal, abortion, the fact that that is about to go down to the states and not have those federal protections, do you think it's taught progressives any lessons about the importance of investing in state legislatures and state races?
Yes, great question. Number one, as I said before, the state Republicans have saw the value of putting resources into state land races since the Civil War. And we're beginning to see the value. I know our great DNC chairman, Jamie Harris, has spoke at the Sister District Summit about putting resources into state land races. And the value of state land races, Virginia alone, when Virginia actually had the majority, they expanded voting rights, they raised the minimum wage, they abolished the death penalty, and they allowed those local governments to remove those racist Confederate statutes. And that was in 2 short years when we had a majority in Virginia. They expanded Medicaid. That's very important. And one of the biggest lessons we have to learn, we learned in Virginia, is having the right message that resonates to voters. Number one, if I'm speaking about education in rural Georgia, I'm not just going to say education. I'm going to talk about broadband access. We had thousands of kids in the state of Georgia simply did not go to school during the pandemic because they could not afford a computer and they didn't have broadband access. So they didn't go to school for a whole year. If I'm speaking about jobs, I'm speaking about increasing the minimum wage. We have states and cities such as Laughlin, Nevada, Quartzsite, Arizona. You're like, I never heard of these cities. Those are the two poorest cities in Nevada and Arizona, which I'm sure they agreed out the voters. They understood, and we had a message to them about increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Healthcare, expanding Medicaid. That's so important to senior citizens. We have senior citizens in Macon, Georgia, right now have to decide between food and prescription drugs in the United States of America. That cannot happen. We have to really dig deep into issues, voting rights. We have to speak about what happened with our dear brother Emmett Till and how we've been fighting for hundreds and hundreds of years for voting rights. And still now in 2022, we have Republicans that introduced 400 anti-voter bills. So if when you vote, you go to the heart of what people value. We have to have a message that resonates to voters, and we have to have conversations with them. We have to door knock. We have to make phone calls. Postcards are great. Direct mail is great. TV, commercials, great. But what wins elections, as the rep will probably tell you, is door knocking and having conversations with voters what values them in the heart. Speaking about increasing minimum wage, broadband access, expanding Medicaid, fighting for voting rights. If I go to 10 doors, maybe 30% of those doors know the name of their state senator and their state rep. That's the problem. But first, we have to educate people on why voting for their state reps is very important. Because, again, if they understand that it protects their civil rights and their human rights, reproductive rights, and voting rights, and every other right under the sun, then they will be more motivated to get out the vote, because they know if I vote for this person, that can actually change my life. And it's not just about us, it's about our great-great-great-grandchildren. These midterm elections are very, very important, because again, we have a conservative Supreme Court that will continue to gut our voting rights and our civil rights. So we have to fight now and work on, we have a chance to get a majority in the state of Virginia, to actually get a majority in the state of Pennsylvania. A slim majority. We have to protect our slim majority in Nevada, and we have to create inroads in states such as Georgia. 10 years ago, Stacey Abrams was like, no, that's not going to happen. Georgia is never going to be a blue state. But Stacey Abrams started first 10 years ago having conversations with people about educating them first, about why they should vote, registering to vote, and then having vote plans for them to get them out to vote. And that's the reason President Biden won, because we had a Black woman 10 years ago that saw the importance of working hard and staying hard until election.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And, I think as we think about lessons, just knowing what state governments and especially state legislatures can either protect you from or actually, harm, especially like you said, the Supreme Court is not on our side right now. And we're going to need more than just one. Everyone's still on the court and seems to be fine, but we're going to need more than one person to leave the court. It's going to take 3 seats for us to actually be in the majority there. So while that's happening over time, it's really important to make sure our state legislatures are equipped with the leadership that they need to protect us from what seems to be a Supreme Court that's kind of focused on making their own laws. Nourbese, over to you now for our second to last question. So throughout this conversation, or I should say, as more attention has been on the conversation of access to reproductive health, but especially since the draft decision leaked last week, a lot of states have already started working on legislation that would criminalize abortion as homicide. We've seen ideas floated around, some advanced in legislatures around banning birth control, and heard ideas about banning condoms and just, everything that is part of reproductive health. However, a lot of these same legislatures have done nothing to make childbearing safer, especially for Black women who experience higher maternal mortality rates. And so I would love if you could just kind of talk us through the exacerbated impact of these two decisions, disparate decisions, and what it means for access to reproductive health.
All right, Shaniqua, with the intersectional question come through. Okay, so where to start? I think a lot of folks may not know, but one of the things that has been super fresh and in the fresh of a lot of Black women's space is the Black maternal mortality rates, right? Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related deaths than the white women. In other places, depending like where you are, California is 5 to 6 times more. Those numbers are fairly high. And we know that that intersection comes because not because Black women are Black, but because of all the issues that impact our lives, right? Whether it's racism, which is a real thing and not being able to be heard and trusted, whether it's access to foods, whether it's climate, whether it's transportation, all these issues are super important to the health and well-being of both pregnant mamas and birthing people, as well as their babies, right? Now, who we see and who is at the forefront of making sure that folks don't have access to childcare, folks don't have access to healthy and affordable foods, people don't have access to just knowledge and further exasperating the space of racism with critical race theory and all these other pieces are the same folks who are pushing abortion access, right? Excuse me, abortion restrictions, right? And so those folks who say that they care about families are not doing a single thing to actually help families live, right? And furthermore, we know that folks of color and particularly Black women, because of all those intersectional issues, have a higher rate of pregnancy loss, right? And have a tendency to have pregnancy loss. And that also in these laws and the hidden pieces in these very egregious pieces of legislation is criminalizations of bodies. So not only do we have your neighbors coming after you with these bounties, but we also have legislators passing laws that will criminalize pregnancy loss, right? So not only if you have an abortion that you can get criminalized, but if you have a miscarriage, you can get criminalized, right? And so these pieces are strong in a way that this is not about however family values, because there are no family values in how they are moving in the ways in which they are restricting abortion access and restricting voting access and all the other pieces, right? If folks cared about what it looks like for family, if they cared about the lives of our communities, right? They would be looking at how do we reduce this disparity that every other modern country, high income country has figured out, right? We are at the top of the list here in terms of maternal mortality. All the other countries have figured out how to give folks healthcare, and high income countries have figured out how to give people healthcare and all these other pieces, but we haven't done that. And so this is not a conversation, I would say, I think they want to make this a conversation about, they're gonna take this like family value type piece. And I just want to say that, no, we need to take that back. We're the folks that are talking about families. We're the folks that care about what it means to be able to choose if, when, and how you have a child. And it means that we are also thinking about all those intersectional issues of what it means to be able to create autonomy over your body, because that is more than what happens in your uterus, which is super important, but all the other things that make community possible.
Thank you for that wonderful answer. So I just have one more question, and then I'm going to actually, it's for everyone, pass it over to Jarvis to talk about our call to action for the week. But we can start with Jarvis on this final question. So the folks who are joining us today are here because they are ready to get involved. They're ready to help build state power. across a ton of issues, but specifically we've been talking about reproductive health access today. So could each of you just very briefly offer a parting message for people who are here today and are ready to get to work now to have an impact on the elections in November?
Yes, I'll start with a story. It's a quick story. I was interviewing Reverend Sharpton last year about voting rights. And he was speaking to me about a conversation he had with Ambassador Young about when Ambassador Young was at the White House with Dr. King when they first passed the Civil Rights Act. And they said, President Johnson, it's time to pass the Voting Rights Act. President Johnson told Dr. King, I can't do it. I don't have the political power. I just passed the Civil Rights Act. I used all the political power that I possibly can. It just can't happen. Voting rights is just not going to happen. We can't pass the Voting Rights Act. So they were leaving the White House. And Ambassador Young told Dr. King, he said, you heard what Dr. Johnson said? Dr. King said, I'm not worried. President Johnson said, Dr. King said, I'm not worried about what President Johnson said because I'm going to go to the South and bring the power back from the people. So he understood the value of going to the South, and then from the South, it branched out all over the United States, all over the world, and we eventually passed the Voting Rights Act because even the most powerful person in the world told Dr. King it can't happen, but Dr. King brought the power back to the people. And that's how we have to look at, have that same feeling and same excitement and same tenacity and energy of Dr. King and bring the power back to your neighborhood and take everyone that you know, speak to them about voting. If you know people in Michigan, if you know people in Pennsylvania, Arizona, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, Nevada, tell them to get out to vote. Tell them to talk to 5 people, to talk to 5 people, to talk to 5 people. And we have partnered with Vote Save America for National Phone Bank with over 20 organizations from across the country. Last year, we made 80,000 dials in Virginia. This year, our goal is to make 100,000 dials all over the country with Vote Save America, Groups Plus and South, Agents for America, Sierra Club Michigan, Citizen Action Wisconsin. So we're really excited. So please volunteer with our National Phone Bank with Vote Save America. Make a call, even if you make a call for 1 hour and call 20 people and speak to about 4 people out of that 20, that's 4 people that probably won't get the vote if you didn't actually have a call, talk to them and get them out to vote. So I'll first tell you now, work with our phone banks, get people out to vote because we need you. We need you in Nevada, we need you in Michigan, we need you in Wisconsin, we need you all over this country. Especially in Michigan, very important. Michigan can get the majority. We're so close. So let's do it. Let's make some calls. Let's make these vote plans to get people out to vote. Let's bring the power back to the people.
Thank you. And to find that event, you can sign up for Midterm Madness at votesaveamerica.com/midterms, and we'll be sending information out for sister districts, National Phone Bank. Nourbese, and I can repeat the question, just some final words for folks who are here now, ready to get involved to make a difference around reproductive health in November.
I have 3 quick things. First one, Saturday, we are doing a huge mobilization across the country. So find your local Planned Parenthood affiliate and get out there on the streets. Sometimes we don't think that's super important. It is a visual representation of anger. We need to let folks know that we are not happy, that we are going to show up, and that we are not going to take this sitting down, right? Second piece, talk to your neighbors and friends. I know, particularly, I come from a Western state, California. We love to be going, let's go over to the South and do some door knocking. That is important. I'm not saying that is not important, but it's also, how do you influence folks in your community? Can you start salons in your neighborhood, in your house, in your community, and start having those conversations to influence the people in your ecosystem so we can keep moving, right? So yes, make sure that we are helping folks in the South, but make sure also you're helping folks at home in your own neighborhoods. The third and final thing is resources. So if you have the money to give to a lot of these organizations, particularly your grassroots organizations, make sure that you are able, and if you can, do that. And if you can't do the money, people also like your time. And it's super, super important. So if you can volunteer and show up, ask folks, both your community organizations or your Planned Parenthoods, because we will take you to volunteer so we can help either turn out the vote or make sure that you can help somebody get to an abortion, if they need somebody just to drive them, all those things that we can hook people up to. So those are 3 things that people can do right now.
Yes, and another plug for Vote Save America. If you go to votesaveamerica.com/row, you can actually find, we have a link there for the Planned Parenthood rallies that are scheduled to happen across the country. But we also have volunteer opportunities to support the ballot initiative in Michigan as well. And so, Representative, I will pass it to you to close us out.
I think I may have a little bit of a different message, although I do think the volunteering and the giving of time and treasure is really, really important. I wouldn't be a good politician if I didn't ask for those things. But what I also want to make sure I'm reminding folks of on this this call, anybody who's tuning in live, this is going to be a long election cycle. I know that, you know, we've been seeing it on the news, and our email inboxes are inundated and our socials are inundated, frankly, with things that are incredibly disturbing and can often be really hard to process in the moment. And people process things really differently. So I want to make sure I remind people to take the time to be with their communities, be with people that you love and care about, and sort of refill your cup so you're able to go out there and work really hard to get candidates elected who share our values. It's really, really important that we're not all running on empty come October. That's something that I, you know, have often found myself not doing such a great job of. So I wanted to make sure I reminded folks of that. On sort of in that same vein, it's going to be really hard for us to be happy warriors, but it's going to be really important that we try to keep a little sliver of that thing that inspired us to get involved in this in the first place, whether it was something that made you angry or something that inspired you. Try to think back to what that moment was that crystallized for you, why it was really important to be part of our democracy, and why it was really important for you to join this fight with other folks to make sure that we have reproductive justice and freedom for all. I know those are really big, broad concepts, but I really think that Jarvis and Nourbese did a really great job of talking about the tangible things we can do right now. I'll be out with Planned Parenthood this weekend in Ann Arbor, so I'll definitely be out in that mobilization. But also, will be carrying with me, you know, the idea that you know, I'm not just doing this for myself; I'm doing this for my community, and it's really important that people find community with each other in this moment, and we take that time to refill our cups because we got a long way to go here until November. And I want to be here I want to be standing at the end with each and every one of you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That is a perfect place for us to end. And thank you again to everyone who's joined us, all of our panelists, all of the audience that joined us today. You know, this all came at us a little over a week ago, very fast. And you know, I think a lot of us knew it was coming, but wasn't expecting to see it so quickly. But I have to say, I am happy a lot more people know. I was talking to a friend who said, I didn't think this was about to happen. I just thought it was, you know, distractions around the country. And so I think now that it's out in the open, you know, we do have to take the time to process it, and then definitely take that time you need to rest up. But this is going to be a long election cycle. And so we're really grateful that you all are able to support all of the partners that we have in Vote Save America. So thank you again for joining us today. Again, go to votesaveamerica.com/midterms to find our midterm madness program, and votesaveamerica.com/row to find our reproductive access volunteer donation and events. And then we also have some educational materials on there as well. So thank you so much to all of you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your, it's evening for everyone. So rest of your evening.
All right. Thank you, Shaniqua. Nice meeting everyone. Bye-bye.